Her name was Patricia, 72 years old, widow of 8 years. She considered herself smart, careful. She'd raised 3 children, managed a household, worked as a school administrator for 30 years. But when she met Richard at her church social, something shifted. He was charming, attentive. He listened when she talked about her late husband. He brought her flowers, called every morning. Within 6 months, Patricia had added his name to her checking account. Within a year, $40,000 of her retirement savings was gone. She told me, "I should have known better, but I was so lonely and he made me feel seen again." Listen to me carefully. Patricia's story isn't unique, and it's not about intelligence. It's not about being naive or desperate. It's about being human, about wanting connection, about living in a world that often makes women over 60 feel invisible. After a certain age, we're supposed to fade quietly into the background. Accept loneliness as our companion. Be grateful for any attention at all. That's nonsense. But that invisibility, that loneliness, that hunger for companionship, certain men know how to exploit it. They've practiced, they've perfected their approach, and they specifically target women like you. This isn't about becoming cynical. It's not about building walls or giving up on connection. This is about being wise, about recognizing patterns, about protecting everything you've worked your whole life to build. Because here's what I'm going to share with you today. There are 3 types of men who consistently, predictably turn toxic in relationships with senior women. 3 types who leave devastation in their wake. And once you learn to recognize them, you'll wonder how you ever missed the signs. You'll learn exactly what to look for, the specific behaviors that reveal their true intentions, the red flag phrases they use, the progression of their manipulation. More importantly, you'll learn how to protect yourself, your finances, your peace, your future. Because you deserve better than settling for toxic. You deserve genuine partnership or peaceful independence. Both are beautiful choices. So let's talk about why this matters right now, in this season of your life. The dating landscape has changed dramatically since you were young. Most of us married in our 20s or 30s. We built lives with those partners. We learned relationship skills in a completely different era. The rules were clearer then. Communities were tighter. Families were more involved. There were social structures that offered some protection. Now, you're navigating a world of online dating, casual relationships, men who've been divorced multiple times, men who've learned to say all the right things without meaning any of them. You're meeting men at a stage of life when everyone carries baggage, when everyone has a past, when distinguishing between normal life experience and toxic patterns becomes incredibly difficult. And the stakes are so much higher now than they were at 25. At 25, you had time to recover from mistakes. You could rebuild savings, start over, learn and grow. At 65 or 75, every decision carries more weight. Your financial security isn't theoretical. It's your retirement funds, your home, your ability to pay for health care, your legacy for your children and grandchildren. You don't have decades to recover from financial abuse. Your health is precious. Stress doesn't just make you unhappy anymore. It affects your blood pressure, your heart, your ability to sleep, your immune system. Toxic relationships don't just hurt your feelings. They can literally shorten your life. And your time, your actual time on this earth, has become more valuable. You don't want to waste years untangling yourself from a manipulative relationship. You want to spend your time on joy, on grandchildren, on friends, on hobbies you finally have time for, on peace. So when I tell you these 3 types of men always turn toxic, I'm not exaggerating. I'm not being dramatic. I'm sharing patterns that financial counselors see, that therapists see, that elder law attorneys see, that your friends have experienced but might be too embarrassed to talk about. Because here's an uncomfortable truth. Toxic men specifically target senior women. You have assets they want: homes, retirement accounts, social security income, life insurance policies. You have vulnerabilities they exploit: loneliness after loss, desire for companionship, societal conditioning to be caregivers and fixers. You have fewer people watching out for you. Adult children are busy with their own lives. Friends have moved or passed away. You're more isolated than you've ever been. And these men, they know all of this. They count on it. Studies show that financial exploitation of older adults costs them nearly $3 billion every year. $3 billion. And women are targeted more often than men, particularly women who've recently lost a spouse, women with assets but limited financial experience, women who are lonely. The emotional toll is even harder to measure. The shame, the isolation, the loss of trust in yourself and others. But it doesn't have to be your story. So let's talk about the first type of toxic man you need to recognize immediately. I call him the financial opportunist. He's the easiest to spot once you know what to look for. But he's also incredibly common and he causes devastating damage. Here's how to recognize him. He moves quickly to talk about finances, not his own, mind you, yours. Early in getting to know you, he's asking questions. Where do you live? Do you own your home? Are you retired? What did you do for work? These seem like normal getting to know you questions, and they can be, but notice the focus, notice the interest level. When you mention your home, does he ask detailed questions about the neighborhood, the value, whether you have a mortgage? When you mention retirement, does he want to know about your pension, your investments, your monthly income? He's gathering intelligence, building a picture of your assets. Meanwhile, when you ask about his financial situation, everything becomes vague. He's between opportunities. He's waiting for a settlement. He's got money tied up in an investment. He's comfortable but not flashy. Nothing concrete, nothing verifiable. Then come the sob stories. His car broke down and he needs a loan until his check comes through. His daughter needs emergency medical care. His business partner cheated him and he's waiting for the lawyers to sort it out. The problems are always temporary. The amount starts small and he's always planning to pay you back immediately. He's charming about it, almost embarrassed. I hate to ask. I've never been in this position before. I'll have the money next week, I promise. You want to help. You're a kind person. It's not that much money. He seems genuinely distressed. So you help. And he does pay you back the first time, maybe even the second time. That's the hook, because now you trust him. You've seen that he keeps his word. You feel good about being generous. So when the next request comes and it's a bit larger, you don't hesitate. And this time, the repayment takes longer. There's another complication, another delay. But he's so apologetic, so grateful, so loving toward you. Before you know it, you're not just lending money. You're paying for dinners because his credit card got declined. You're covering his rent because his disability check was delayed. You're adding him to your phone plan, your car insurance, your Costco membership. Each step feels small, reasonable, what people do for each other in relationships. But look at the direction, look at the pattern. The money only flows one way, from you to him. And his interest in your assets intensifies. He suggests moving in together. Think of the money you'd save. He could help with the bills. You wouldn't be alone anymore. He mentions marriage. At your age, why keep things complicated? You should combine finances, make things easier. He knows about your will, your beneficiaries, your life insurance, and he has opinions about all of it. This is when it turns truly toxic. Because once he has access to your accounts, once his name is on your house, once you're legally entangled, the mask drops. The charm fades. The gratitude disappears. Now he's entitled. It's his money too, his house too. You're selfish for questioning his spending. He controls access to your own funds. He makes financial decisions without consulting you. He pressures you to sign documents you don't fully understand. And if you resist, the emotional manipulation intensifies. You're not supportive. You don't trust him after everything he's done for you, after all you've been through together. He isolates you from family and friends who question the relationship. They're jealous. They don't understand. They're trying to come between you. Patricia, the woman I mentioned earlier, this was her story. Richard convinced her that her children were just waiting for her to die so they could inherit, that they didn't really care about her, that only he truly loved her. By the time she realized what was happening, she was ashamed to tell anyone, afraid no one would believe her, terrified of losing the only companionship she had, even though it was destroying her. The financial opportunist turns toxic because the relationship was always transactional for him. You were never a partner. You were a resource to be mined. And when you're no longer useful, or when you start resisting, He either discards you or doubles down on the control. The financial damage is devastating, but the emotional damage runs even deeper. You lose faith in your own judgment. You isolate from people who care about you. You sacrifice your security for someone who never valued you at all. Now let me tell you about the second type. He's harder to spot because he seems like the opposite of the financial opportunist. I call him the instant soulmate. You meet him and it feels like magic, like destiny, like everything you've been waiting for. He's attentive beyond belief. He texts you good morning and good night every single day. He wants to see you constantly. He calls you his dream woman within the first week. I can't believe how much we have in common, he says. I've never met anyone like you. Where have you been all my life? You love the same movies, the same books, the same music. You share the same values, the same dreams for the future. It feels too good to be true. That's because it is. The instant soulmate is practicing a technique called mirroring. He's reflecting back everything you tell him about yourself. Your interests become his interests. Your opinions become his opinions. He's creating artificial intimacy at lightning speed, and he's pushing for commitment just as fast. Within weeks, he's talking about moving in together, about marriage, about combining your lives completely. At our age, why wait, he says. We're not kids anymore. We know what we want. Why waste time? He uses your age as a weapon of urgency. This is your last chance at love. You've been alone long enough. You deserve happiness now, not someday. Every hesitation on your part becomes evidence that you don't care as much as he does, that you're not as committed, that you're wasting precious time. He creates an us against the world mentality. Your friends don't understand what you have together. Your children are being overprotective. Other people are jealous of your happiness. He suggests spending less time with them, more time with him, just the two of you. Isn't that more romantic anyway? Before you realize it, you're isolated. You've stopped going to your book club because he wants you home for dinner. You've canceled plans with friends because he planned a surprise for you. You talk to your children less because he gets upset when you prioritize them. And the intensity that felt like passion at first, it starts to feel like pressure. He needs constant reassurance, constant attention, constant proof of your love. If you don't text back immediately, he's hurt. If you want an evening to yourself, he's devastated. If you mention an old friend, he's jealous. This is when the toxicity fully emerges. Because the instant soulmate isn't in love with you. He's in love with the idea of possessing you, of consuming you, of making you completely dependent on him for emotional validation. Your identity starts to disappear. Your preferences don't matter anymore. Your needs take a back seat to his constant emotional demands, and leaving becomes incredibly difficult. He's built this intense bond so quickly that breaking it feels like tearing yourself apart. He's isolated you so thoroughly that you don't have your old support system to fall back on. He threatens to harm himself if you leave. He promises to change. He reminds you that no one else will ever love you like he does. He's right about that last part, but not in the way he means it. No healthy person will love you like he does, because what he's offering isn't love. It's obsession. It's control. It's emotional imprisonment. The third type is perhaps the most insidious, because he seems like the safest option of all. But I'm going to tell you about him in just a moment. First, let's take a breath together. If you're recognizing patterns right now, either in a current relationship or a past one, that's okay. That's actually good. Recognition is the first step toward protection, toward change, toward reclaiming your power. You're not foolish for having been vulnerable to these types. You're human. You wanted connection. There's no shame in that. The shame belongs to the men who exploit kindness and loneliness for their own gain. So stay with me, because understanding the third type, the wounded hero, might be the most important protection I can offer you. And then we're going to talk about how to recognize these patterns early, how to protect yourself, and how to find genuine connection instead of toxic manipulation. Because you deserve real partnership or peaceful independence. Both are beautiful choices, and you have the wisdom now to choose wisely. Let me tell you about Margaret. She met David at a community book club. He was quiet, thoughtful. While other men talked over people, David listened. Really listened. On their first coffee date, he opened up about his late wife, how she'd changed in her final years, become cold, critical, how he'd cared for her anyway despite feeling so alone in the marriage. Margaret's heart went out to him. Here was a man who could be vulnerable, who had depth, who wasn't afraid to share his feelings. That's how the wounded hero draws you in. He seems like everything the other types aren't. He's not pushy like the Instant Soulmate. He's not asking for money like the Financial Opportunist. He just needs understanding, compassion, someone who sees the good man beneath the pain. And you, with your lifetime of caring for others, you can be that person, can't you? Let me tell you how to recognize him. The wounded hero shares his trauma early, very early. By the second or third date, you know about his difficult divorce, his children who don't appreciate him, his late wife who didn't understand him, his health problems, his financial setbacks that weren't his fault. He positions himself as a good man who's been dealt a bad hand, and he positions you as different from everyone else. You understand him. You see his true heart. You don't judge him like others do. He says things like, "I can talk to you in ways I've never been able to talk to anyone." Or, "You're the first person who really gets me." Or, "I don't know what I'd do without you. You've given me hope again." It feels good, doesn't it, to be needed that way, to be special. But here's what's really happening. He's making you responsible for his emotional well-being. Margaret noticed it about 3 months in. Every time they made plans, David had a crisis. His son hadn't called him back. His doctor had bad news. His ex-wife was causing problems with their property settlement. Their dates became therapy sessions, with Margaret doing all the therapeutic work. When she suggested he see a counselor, he said, "Why would I need that when I have you? You help me more than any therapist could." When she tried to talk about her own struggles, her own grief over her late husband, David would listen for a moment. Then somehow the conversation would shift back to his pain. His needs always became more urgent, more important. Margaret started to feel exhausted, but also guilty for feeling exhausted. After all, David had been through so much. He needed her. What kind of person would she be to abandon someone who was suffering? That's exactly what the wounded hero counts on. Your compassion, your sense of responsibility, your lifetime of putting others' needs before your own. Here's how he operates, and I want you to listen carefully. He creates a dynamic where you're the caretaker and he's the patient. But it's a patient who never gets better. You suggest solutions, he explains why they won't work. You offer support, he needs more. You set a boundary, he has a breakdown. When Margaret told David she needed 1 evening a week for her book club and her friends, he didn't argue. He just went quiet, withdrawn. The next day he called. He'd been up all night, feeling so alone, wondering if he was just a burden to her. Maybe he should just stop bothering her altogether. Margaret immediately backed down. Of course he wasn't a burden. Of course she'd see him that evening instead. She stopped going to book club. Her friends stopped calling as much. That's the isolation the wounded hero creates. It's not loud and controlling like the Instant Soulmate. It's quiet, guilt-based, insidious. You isolate yourself because disappointing him feels cruel, because his need always seems more urgent than your own. Let me be very clear about something. A man who has experienced genuine hardship and is genuinely healing will do certain things. He'll take responsibility for his own recovery. He'll see a therapist. He'll work on himself. He'll be interested in your life, your needs, your experiences, not just as a mirror for his own pain, but genuinely. He'll respect your boundaries without guilt trips or emotional manipulation. He'll have other sources of support, friends, family, professional help. He won't make you his only lifeline. The wounded hero does none of these things because he doesn't want to heal. He wants a caretaker, an emotional support animal. Someone to manage his feelings for him, and when you can't fix him, because no one can fix another adult human being, he'll resent you for it. Margaret finally ended things after 8 months. David had asked to move in with her. His lease was ending, and he couldn't afford a place as nice as hers on his own. Something in Margaret finally snapped awake. She said no. David's wounded vulnerability disappeared in an instant. He called her selfish, cold, just like his ex-wife. He'd been wrong about her. She didn't really care about him at all. The mask came off, because here's the truth about all 3 of these types. the financial opportunist, the instant soulmate, the wounded hero. They all see you as a resource, not a partner. The financial opportunist wants your money and security. The instant soulmate wants your complete devotion and identity. The wounded hero wants your endless emotional labor and caretaking. None of them see you as a whole person with your own needs, your own boundaries, your own life that matters just as much as theirs. And that's why they all turn toxic. Because a relationship built on using someone will always become abusive when that person stops being useful in the way the user wants. The toxicity was always there. You just couldn't see it at first because these men are skilled at hiding it behind romance or vulnerability or urgent need. Let me tell you what happens when you stay with any of these types. Your sense of self erodes. You start to question your own judgment, your own perceptions, your own worth. Your financial security becomes vulnerable, whether through direct theft, manipulation, or just the stress of supporting someone who won't support themselves. Your social connections weaken. You're too embarrassed to tell friends what's really happening, or he's driven them away. Or you're too exhausted to maintain those relationships. Your health suffers. The stress manifests in your body. High blood pressure, insomnia, anxiety, depression. Stress affects everything at our age. And your time, that precious commodity we have less of with each passing year, gets consumed by someone who doesn't truly value you. You didn't see it coming because you weren't supposed to. These men have done this before. They know how to find women who are kind, who are lonely, who want connection. They know exactly which buttons to push, and we were raised to be caregivers, to put others first, to not be selfish, to give men the benefit of the doubt. We were taught that a good woman stands by her man, supports him, doesn't give up on him. But here's what no one taught us. Standing by someone and allowing yourself to be used are two completely different things. So let's talk about protection, about empowerment, about how you move forward from here. First, a mindset shift. Being selective is not being bitter, it's being wise. You've earned the right to have standards, to have requirements, to say no to anything that doesn't feel right. Being alone is better than being with someone toxic. Loneliness is uncomfortable, but toxicity is damaging. There's a profound difference. You deserve full partnership, not projects. You are not a rehabilitation center for broken men. You are not a retirement plan for opportunists. You are not an emotional support system for someone who refuses to do his own work. You are a complete human being who deserves mutual respect, genuine affection, and reciprocal care. Now, let's talk about practical protection. Financial boundaries are non-negotiable. Never combine finances quickly. I don't care how much he loves you or how much sense he says it makes. Keep your accounts separate for at least a year, preferably longer. If he needs to borrow money, the answer is no. Not maybe, not a small amount, no. If he pressures you about your assets, your home, your retirement funds, that's a red flag the size of a football field. Verify anything he tells you about his financial situation. If he says he's waiting on an inheritance or a settlement or a business deal, and that's why he needs help now, verify it. If he's legitimate, he won't be offended. Time boundaries protect you from the instant soulmate. Insist on slow progression. 6 months minimum before any major decision. A year is better. If he pushes back, if he says at your age there's no time to waste, that's manipulation. There's always time to be sure. Keep your own space, don't move in together quickly. Don't let him move in because it's convenient or economical. Take time apart. If he can't handle you, having your own life, your own schedule, your own activities without him, that's a warning sign. Social boundaries prevent isolation. Maintain your friendships and family connections no matter what. If he's the right man, he'll encourage this. He'll want you to be happy and connected. Introduce him to your circle early. Watch how he treats your friends. Watch how they react to him. Trust their instincts. If you find yourself making excuses for not seeing people, or if he always has a reason why you shouldn't go somewhere without him, pay attention. Emotional boundaries protect you from the wounded hero. Notice who does the emotional labor in the relationship. Is it balanced? Do you talk about your life as much as his? Do your feelings matter as much as his? Your needs matter equally, not less. Equally. If he has ongoing emotional or mental health struggles, he needs professional help. You can be supportive, but you cannot be his therapist. If he guilt trips you when you set boundaries, that's manipulation. A healthy person respects boundaries even when disappointed. Here's what I call the trust your gut protocol. If something feels off, it usually is. Your instincts have been honed over decades of life experience. Trust them. Run major decisions past trusted friends or family members, not for permission, but for perspective. Sometimes we're too close to see clearly. Notice if you're making excuses for his behavior. If you find yourself thinking, well, he only did that because, or he didn't really mean it when you're probably overlooking red flags. Watch for isolation attempts. Any man who wants you all to himself, who doesn't want to share you with friends or family, who makes you feel guilty for having a life outside the relationship, is dangerous. Now let me tell you what to look for instead. The green flags that signal a healthy man. Financial transparency and stability. He's open about his situation. He supports himself. He doesn't need you to rescue him. Respect for your pace. He's willing to take things slowly. He understands that trust is built over time. Encouragement of your independence. He wants you to have friends, hobbies, activities that don't include him. He has his own as well. Consistent actions matching words. He doesn't just say nice things. He follows through. He's reliable. He does what he says he'll do. Interest in your life, not just access to your resources or your caretaking, but genuine curiosity about who you are, what you think, what you want, what brings you joy. He asks about your day and really listens. He remembers things you've told him. He supports your goals and dreams. He takes responsibility for his own emotions and actions. He doesn't blame his ex, his children, his circumstances for everything wrong in his life. He's doing his own work. If he has past trauma, he's addressing it. Therapy, support groups, genuine self-reflection. He can be alone. He's not desperately seeking someone to complete him. He's a whole person looking for another whole person to share life with. These men exist. I promise you they do. But they're often quieter, less flashy. They're not love-bombing you or rushing you or overwhelming you with their needs. They're steady, patient, respectful, and they're worth waiting for. Or, and this is equally important, you may decide that peaceful independence is what you want. There is profound beauty in a life well lived on your own terms, in friendships that nourish you, in hobbies that fulfill you, in the freedom to structure your days exactly as you wish, in not having to manage someone else's emotions or needs or demands. You don't need a partner to be complete. You're already complete. A partner should add to your life, not consume it. So here's what I want you to do. If you're currently in a relationship, review it honestly against these patterns. Does he fit any of these three types? Are there red flags you've been overlooking? If you recognize toxic patterns, reach out to someone you trust. A friend, a family member, a counselor. You don't have to navigate this alone. If you're single, carry this information with you as protection, as wisdom, as a filter for anyone new who enters your life. Share this with your friends. We protect each other, we warn each other, we support each other. And most importantly, trust yourself. You've lived long enough to know what feels right and what doesn't. You've earned that wisdom through decades of experience. Don't let anyone, any man, any societal pressure, any fear of being alone convince you to ignore what you know in your bones. You've worked too hard. You've lived through too much. You've built too much. You deserve real love or peaceful independence. Both are beautiful choices. Both honor the remarkable woman you are, the woman who is wise enough to recognize danger, strong enough to walk away from it, and valuable enough to never settle for less than genuine respect and care. You are not too old for joy. You're not too old for genuine connection. You're not too old to have standards and boundaries and requirements. You are exactly the right age to know your worth, and to never, ever compromise it for someone who sees you as anything less than the complete, valuable, deserving person you are. Trust yourself, protect yourself, honor yourself. You've earned it.